The forgotten human is a former janitor on a galactic station who speaks dozens of dead Earth dialects. The Vulpine language turns out to be based on emotional subtext and tonal intent, not grammar. Humans, emotionally messy by nature, are the only species capable of speaking it naturally. Double meaning angle. Spoke her language literally means understood her pauses, tail flicks, silences, what others dismissed as unprofessional behavior. HFY message. Aliens evolved perfection. Humans evolved empathy. Every alien diplomat fails because they treat negotiations like equations. The human, poor, forgotten, and socially awkward, accidentally charms the Vulpine diplomat by complaining honestly about life, rent, and bad bosses. Double meaning. Diplomatic relations improve overnight. Becomes a running joke as the galaxy misinterprets their chemistry. Comedy hook. The human keeps insisting. The Vulpine language is considered untranslatable because it relies heavily on implied consent, layered meaning, and emotional mirroring. Humans do this unconsciously in storytelling, flirting, sarcasm, and arguments. Double meaning. Other species think the human is seducing the diplomat. He's actually just being human. The human is assigned as her cultural translator. Officially, he translates words. Unofficially, he explains why humans stare, joke at bad times, and say things they don't fully mean. Double meaning. Cultural exchange sessions become legendary across the station. Tone. Playful tension, misunderstanding, lingering looks, nothing explicit, but very wink-wink. The human was erased from records after a bureaucratic error. No rank. No citizenship. When he speaks to the Vulpine diplomat in her true language, she realizes humans deliberately hide their most powerful trait, emotional truth masked as weakness. Double meaning. Forgotten human becomes symbolic. The galaxy forgot why humans survived everything. Final flex moment. The diplomat refuses all translators and says, the Vulpine word for mutual understanding also means chosen bond. Once the human speaks it fluently, rumors explode that they're politically bonded. Double meaning. Every alien headline sounds scandalous, even though nothing improper actually happens. Introduce the galactic problem, Vulpine diplomat. Establish comedy through failure. Show alien arrogance versus human messiness. Set up the forgotten human mystery. Prime double meanings without payoff yet. Key story beats. Galactic Council frustrated. She refuses to be understood. Vulpine diplomat described with exaggerated alien reactions. Tail flicks misread as insults. Silence interpreted as threats. Eye contact logged as psychological warfare. Every translator AI fails, too literal, too polite, too sterile. Diplomats overthink everything except the obvious, emotion. Comedy through escalating bureaucratic panic. Adult comedy and double meaning use. No one can get a read on her. Every attempt ends awkwardly. The Vulpine method of negotiation is intimate. Aliens using painfully formal language to describe simple feelings. HFY setup. Humans referenced as emotionally unstable primates. Humanity considered unsuitable for diplomacy. Irony planted. The solution is hiding in plain sight. Purpose of this section. Deliver the core payoff. Lean hardest into double meaning and misunderstandings. Show aliens reacting to human emotional fluency. Turn comedy into momentum. Key story beats. Human speaks to the diplomat, not as an official, but as a person. He mirrors tone, pauses, emotional rhythm. The Vulpine language revealed. Built on implication. Emotional alignment. Shared vulnerability. Translation devices label conversation as inappropriate intimacy. Galactic rumors explode. Adult comedy and double meaning use. They were just talking, apparently very well. Diplomatic closeness reached unsafe levels. Cultural exchange flagged as excessively personal. Aliens mislabel empathy as seduction. HFY flex. Humans don't dominate, they connect. Emotional truth beats technology. humanity's chaos becomes the solution. Resolve conflict. Deliver the HFY thesis. Cement symbolic meaning of forgotten human. End with a strong, quotable final moment. Key story beats. Council demands formal translator's return. Vulpine diplomat refuses. She explains why everyone failed. They wanted control, not understanding. Reveals humans hide emotional strength behind humor and humility. Forgotten human becomes metaphor for forgotten humanity. The galaxy forced to confront its mistake. Final flex moment, mandatory line setup. The diplomat ends all debate with a calm, devastating line. Remove the translators. Send me the human who listens. Adult comedy and double meaning close. Diplomatic relations stabilize immediately. Human emotional bandwidth declared a strategic resource. The human remains officially unregistered, by choice. Ending note. Humanity didn't need recognition to win. It just needed to be understood. Why this works for YouTube Faceless. Clear act structure equals strong retention. Dialogue-driven tension equals easy narration. Double meaning boosts rewatch value. Humor keeps it light, HFY keeps it powerful. No visuals required. Language carries everything. If you want next I can. Write Act 1 only, 1,000 words, no headings. Turn this into a beat-by-beat script. Optimize it for CTR plus retention pacing. Push it even bolder while staying platform safe. No one liked to admit it, but the problem wasn't the Vulpine diplomat. The problem was everyone else. She had been standing in the center of the Galactic Council chamber for 3 standard cycles now, perfectly still, silver for immaculate, long ears angled in a way that made 3 ambassadors quietly request hazard pay. Her tail moved only occasionally, slow, deliberate, controlled. Every time it did, another translator AI flashed red. Hostility detected, one announced. Affection detected, another corrected. Threat disguised as invitation, a third insisted, overheating slightly before shutting down. The council groaned as one. This was the 12th attempt. No sudden movements, whispered the avian delegate, already halfway behind his chair. I'm not moving, snapped the crystalline envoy. I'm vibrating defensively. Across the chamber, a delegation of gelatinous observers pulsed nervously, recording everything and understanding absolutely nothing. The Vulpine diplomat said nothing. She didn't need to. Her silence alone was enough to make the room sweat. Officially, she was here to negotiate trade routes. Unofficially, she was here to remind the galaxy that some species didn't need to raise their voices to dominate a room. Every species had tried to decipher her language, syntactically flawless, emotionally impossible. Words were technically translated, but meaning slipped through like water through fingers. When she finally spoke, the chamber leaned in. Your posture suggests discomfort, she said calmly. The translator rendered it as aggression imminent. 3 delegates fainted. See? The amphibian ambassador croaked. She's threatening us with posture. She's clearly displeased, said the machine mind delegate. Her tone curve dipped by 0.04 units. That means intimacy in Vulpine culture, corrected another AI. What kind of diplomacy involves intimacy? Someone shouted. The Vulpine diplomat's ears twitched. The room went dead silent. No, she said slowly. It does not. That somehow made things worse. Every species here had evolved past emotional ambiguity. Feelings were catalogued, labeled, neatly stored. Even conflict had protocols. The Vulpine, however, operated in a gray zone that made everyone uncomfortable. They spoke in implication, in emotional pressure, in pauses that carried more weight than words. And nobody knew what to do with that. The council chair rubbed 4 of his eyes. Why? He asked no one in particular. Is this so hard? Because, unspoken but obvious, the galaxy preferred clean inputs and predictable outputs. The Vulpine diplomat was either. Attempts to resolve the issue had grown increasingly desperate. Linguists were flown in. Empathy specialists. Cultural harmonizers. One species even tried interpretive dance. That species was no longer invited to official functions. Every failure was carefully documented, categorized, archived. Meanwhile, the human didn't exist. He was listed nowhere. No rank, no designation, no citizenship. A bureaucratic error, filed, cross-filed, then quietly forgotten. The system did not like admitting mistakes, so it did what it always did best, ignored him. Which was fine. He'd learned to live with that. He moved through the station unnoticed, fixing things no one realized were broken. A loose conduit here. A jammed door there. He listened more than he spoke, not because he was wise, but because talking rarely helped when no one remembered your name. From the maintenance corridor above the council chamber, he leaned against the railing, half eating a protein bar that tasted faintly of regret. Below him, the most powerful beings in known space were unraveling. He watched the Vulpine Diplomat tilt her head, just slightly, as another translator tried, and failed, to soften her words. "That pause," muttered a technician nearby, "means she's about to walk out." The human frowned. "No," he said without thinking. "She's waiting." The technician blinked. "For what?" "For someone to stop performing," the human replied. "And start being honest." The technician stared. "You're not cleared to be here." The human shrugged. "Neither is my lunch." Below them, the council was unraveling fast. "We suggest modifying your tone for cooperative engagement," said the insectoid envoy, voice buzzing. The Vulpine Diplomat's tail stilled completely. "Do not," she said softly. "Instruct me on how to feel." The translators panicked. Dominance challenge detected. Seduction protocol engaged. Emergency cultural buffer deployed. A transparent field flickered briefly around her, then fizzled out. She looked unimpressed. The human exhaled slowly. He recognized that look. He'd seen it before, back on Earth, when someone realized they were surrounded by people talking at them instead of to them. "Poor thing," he muttered. The technician hissed. "Do not anthropomorphize the diplomat." "I'm not," the human said. "I'm humanizing the situation." Down below, the chairperson slammed a tentacle on the desk. "We are at an impasse." The Vulpine Diplomat finally looked tired. "You do not hear what I am not saying," she replied. "And you hear too much in what I am." The chamber fell silent. No translator could keep up. The human straightened, suddenly aware of something he hadn't planned on feeling today: responsibility. Not the official kind. The human kind. The kind that showed up whether you wanted it or not. He had been invisible for so long that listening had become second nature. Humans survived that way, by reading rooms, moods, unsaid things. It wasn't taught. It was learned the hard way. The Vulpine Diplomat's ears flicked again. Her gaze shifted, not toward the council, but upward. Toward the observation rail. For just a second, her eyes met his. No words passed between them. But something did. Her expression softened, not much, just enough. The translators went quiet. "Interesting," she murmured. The council erupted. What did she mean by that? Was that approval? Did she just initiate something? The human swallowed the last of his protein bar and stepped back into the shadows, heart thudding. He hadn't said a word. He hadn't done anything. And somehow, that was the most disruptive thing that had happened all day. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but the solution to its most delicate diplomatic crisis wasn't hidden in technology or protocol. It was leaning against a railing, officially non-existent, doing what humans had always done best when everything else failed, listening, and understanding far more than anyone expected. By the next cycle, rumors had already started. Not official ones, of course. Officially, nothing had changed. The council was still reviewing options. Translators were still recalibrating. The Vulpine Diplomat was still under observation. Bureaucracy moved at its usual glacial pace, pretending it hadn't noticed the sudden spike in interest logs around one specific maintenance corridor. Unofficially, everyone was whispering. She reacted. said one aide. To what? Another asked. To someone, came the reply, vague and unsettling. The human felt it immediately. The silence around him shifted. It wasn't the comfortable kind he was used to, the kind that came from being overlooked. This silence leaned in, watched, waited. He kept working anyway. That was the trick. If you acted like nothing mattered, most beings assumed it didn't. He rerouted power couplings, cleaned intake vents, fixed the translator unit that insisted on rendering every pause as a mating signal. He didn't comment on that one. It felt like it might come up again. Someone finally did notice him. Not by name. No one ever did that. But a security drone hovered a little too long as he passed. A clerk double-checked a terminal when he walked by. A junior diplomat paused mid-sentence, frowned, then continued like the thought had slipped away. Being forgotten wasn't the same as being invisible. It was worse. Invisibility meant absence. Forgotten meant you were there, but inconvenient. He was leaning over an open panel when a voice spoke behind him. You were present. He nearly smacked his head on the bulkhead. He turned slowly. The Vulpine diplomat stood a respectful distance away, hands folded behind her back, posture relaxed in a way that made trained negotiators nervous. Up close, her fur caught the light in subtle patterns, silver shifting to pale gold depending on the angle. Her eyes weren't sharp like most predators. They were attentive. Curious. Yes, he said carefully. I usually am. Her ears tilted. You are not listed. That happens a lot, he replied. Long story. Involves forms. She watched him for a moment longer than was comfortable. Or maybe exactly as long as was necessary. You did not speak, she said. No, he agreed. Didn't seem like the right time. And yet, she continued, you understood. He shrugged. I listened. That earned him a slow tail movement. Not sharp. Not defensive. Thoughtful. Around them, half a dozen officials pretended very hard not to exist. You heard what I did not say, she said. He smiled faintly. Humans are good at that. We have to be. Because you are ignored, she replied, not unkindly. Because we survive, he corrected. Same thing sometimes. The translators, hastily wheeled closer, word uncertainly. None of them activated. No one wanted to risk it. You are forgotten, the diplomat said. Officially, he said. Unofficially, I'm very busy. Her lips curved just slightly. In my culture, being forgotten is intimate. He blinked. That sounds like a misunderstanding waiting to happen. Most things are, she said calmly. Words spread fast after that. Too fast. By the time the human finished his shift, half the station believed he'd been assigned as a cultural liaison. The other half believed something far more scandalous and far less accurate. How close were you standing? Did she lower her ears? Was there alignment? He ignored all of it. Humans had learned long ago that rumors were just stories trying to entertain themselves. The council, however, was not entertained. This is unacceptable, snapped the chairperson. An unregistered individual engaging in unsanctioned diplomatic contact? He did not engage, the Vulpine diplomat replied. He responded. That's worse, someone muttered. They brought in specialists. Again. This time, they tried to replicate what had happened. They assigned professionals trained in emotional mirroring, tone matching, calibrated vulnerability. Every attempt failed. The human watched from the side as one expert carefully adjusted posture, softened voice, inserted a pause of exactly 3 seconds. The diplomat stared at them. You are imitating, she said. Poorly. The expert flushed purple. Another tried honesty. Scripted honesty. It landed like a checklist. When it was over, the diplomat turned, scanned the room, and her gaze landed on the human again. May I speak with him? She asked. The room froze. That is highly irregular, said the chair. Yes, she agreed. That is the point. They cleared the room. Not because they wanted to, but because no one wanted to be the one to argue. The human sat across from her at a small table meant for devices, not people. He rested his arms casually, aware of every camera, every sensor, every misinterpretation waiting to happen. "You are nervous," she observed. "Yeah," he admitted. "That's new." "No," she corrected. "You are nervous because this matters." "That is familiar." He considered that. "You're not wrong." She leaned back slightly. "The others speak to me as if I am a problem to be solved." "And you're not?" "I am a person," she said. "So are you." He laughed softly. "Careful. Some species consider that a radical statement." Her ears flicked in amusement. "You do not hide your meaning," she said. "But you disguise it. That's kind of our thing," he replied. "We joke when we're scared. We downplay when we care. Makes life manageable. In my culture," she said, "that would be considered a form of trust." He raised an eyebrow. "You're telling me the galaxy thinks I'm doing something bold?" "They think you are doing something improper," she corrected. "Even better." She studied him, then spoke quietly. "Your people survived because you learned to feel without being consumed." He didn't answer right away. "Or maybe," he said finally, "we survived because we got really good at pretending we weren't strong." Her gaze softened again. This time, no translator dared interrupt. Outside the room, alarms didn't sound, but metrics spiked. Emotional resonance readings. Cultural alignment probabilities. Half the systems flagged it as a breach. Inside, two beings simply talked. Not formally. Not strategically. Honestly. And for the first time since she'd arrived, the Vulpine diplomat relaxed fully. The galaxy, watching from behind glass and data, had no idea what was happening. All they knew was that the forgotten human, unranked, undocumented, inconvenient, was somehow doing what none of them could. He wasn't negotiating. He was understanding. And that terrified them far more than hostility ever could. The fallout was immediate and wildly disproportionate. Within hours, the station's internal networks were saturated with speculative alerts. Cultural risk assessments spiked. Diplomatic probability curves bent in directions no one liked. Somewhere deep in the data vaults, an automated system flagged the phrase emotional alignment achieved and didn't know what to do with it. The human knew none of this at first. He only noticed that people had started giving him space. Not the dismissive kind, the careful kind. The kind you give to something you don't understand but suspect might matter. Everywhere he went, conversation stopped just a second too late. He passed two aides whispering urgently. "Not officially bonded, just resonant. That's still not allowed." He pretended not to hear. He was very good at that. The Vulpine diplomat, meanwhile, had refused all further meetings that did not include him. She didn't make demands. She simply declined. Calmly. Politely. Completely. "Without the human," she said, "there is no conversation." The translators tried to interpret that. They failed. By the third refusal, the council was panicking. "This is spiraling," the chair snapped. "Do we know what he's saying to her?" "No," admitted the intelligence delegate. "But we know how the data reads. And it looks like mutual understanding." The room went quiet. "That's not a metric," someone muttered. "It is now," replied the machine mind, sounding unsettled. When they finally called the human in, it wasn't with authority. It was with hesitation. "You need to explain," the chair said carefully. The human leaned back in the seat they'd given him, too ornate, too formal, like everything else in this room. "Explain what?" "What you're doing." He thought about that. "Talking." A ripple of irritation passed through the chamber. "She is a high-ranking Vulpine diplomat," the chair said. "Your interactions have been flagged as—" He glanced at a datapad. "Excessively personal." The human winced. "Yeah, that sounds about right. That is not a joke. Wasn't meant to be." The Vulpine diplomat watched the exchange with open curiosity, tail moving slowly behind her chair. She hadn't spoken yet. She didn't need to. Everyone felt her presence anyway. You do not ask him to justify himself, she said finally. You ask because you do not understand him. That is literally the problem. The chair snapped. No, she corrected. That is the solution. The human rubbed the back of his neck. Look, I'm not doing anything special. I'm just not trying to manage her. Manage? Echoed 3 delegates at once. She's not a system, he continued. She's not a puzzle. She's a person who knows when she's being talked around instead of talked to. The Vulpine diplomat's ears angled slightly toward him. Approval, if you knew what to look for. You speak as if this is obvious, said the avian envoy. It is, the human replied. You're just all really uncomfortable with it. That is an accusation, snapped the insectoid delegate. Welcome to the feeling, he said mildly. Metrics spiked again. The rumors evolved after that. They always did. First, it was whispered that the human was manipulating her. Then that she was manipulating him. Then that neither was true and that was somehow worse. Phrases started circulating: emotional dependency, cross-cultural intimacy, unsanctioned bonding. None of them fit. All of them sounded scandalous enough to travel fast. The human found it exhausting. He found her easy. They talked when schedules allowed, which wasn't often. When they did, it wasn't about treaties or routes or concessions. It was about what silence meant. About why humans laughed at the wrong moments. About why the Vulpine valued restraint so highly that even honesty had to be earned. At first, she admitted once, I thought your people were careless with emotion. We are, he said. On purpose. Why? Because if you don't let it out, it turns on you. She considered that. In my culture, emotion is controlled to prevent harm. In mine, he replied, it's shared to survive it. That conversation alone triggered 6 alerts and 1 emergency subcommittee. The translators, sidelined and offended, kept trying to reinsert themselves. One recorded a session and produced a report 300 pages long that concluded with, the interaction appears cooperative, intimate, and statistically inadvisable. The council demanded boundaries. The Vulpine diplomat agreed, to a point. I will maintain formality, she said. With everyone else. That was when the phrase started appearing in unofficial logs. Remove intermediaries. The idea horrified them. Intermediaries were safety. Intermediaries were distance. Without them, things could get personal. The human felt the weight of it one cycle later when she said quietly, They believe we are too close. He snorted. They think we're doing something wrong. Are we? He met her gaze. No. But they've never been good at telling the difference. She smiled then, not with her mouth, but with her posture, her stillness, the subtle easing of tension. The kind of smile no translator could catch. In that case, she said, let them be uncomfortable. The breaking point came during the emergency session. Data projections scrolled. Risk assessments overlapped. Someone used the word containment and immediately regretted it. This cannot continue, the chair declared. The optics alone. You are afraid of optics, the Vulpine diplomat interrupted. I am afraid of misunderstanding. You are jeopardizing negotiations, another delegate snapped. No, she said calmly. You are. She stood, and the room stilled with her. You speak to me through machines because you fear what honesty requires, she continued. You hide behind protocol because it allows you to feel superior while remaining distant. Her gaze moved, finally, to the human. He does not do this. The chair opened his mouth. She raised one finger. He listens. He responds. He does not posture. He does not perform. He does not fear being seen as weak. The human swallowed. He hadn't expected that. In my language, she said, this is called speaking truly. Silence followed. Not the awkward kind. The dangerous kind. Therefore, she concluded, I will no longer accept translation from those who refuse to understand. The chair's voice cracked. You can't mean. She did. Her eyes locked on the human. Remove the translators, she said evenly. Send me the one who listens. Every system in the chamber flagged the statement. Every protocol failed. And for the first time, the galaxy realized that humanity's greatest threat had never been its weapons, or its technology, or its stubborn refusal to quit. It was this. A species so comfortable with flawed emotion that it could walk unarmed into the most delicate moment imaginable, and make everyone else feel exposed. The forgotten human didn't look powerful. That was the problem. He was. The chamber didn't erupt after her declaration. It froze. Systems chimed warnings that no one acknowledged. Advisors opened their mouths and closed them again. Somewhere, a protocol auto-generated a formal objection and quietly deleted itself when no one endorsed it. The human felt every eye turned toward him. Not accusatory. Assessing. Like the galaxy had just realized it had misplaced something valuable, and was trying to decide whether to admit it. He raised both hands slowly. For the record, he said, I did not ask for this. The Vulpine diplomat's tail moved once, amused. Neither did I, she replied. That is why it matters. The chair cleared his throat, which was difficult, given that he had three. This is highly irregular. Yes, she said. You've mentioned. You are proposing to conduct negotiations without certified intermediaries. I am refusing to continue with those who refuse to hear, she corrected. The human shifted his weight. I'm still technically not cleared. The diplomat looked at him. You are cleared by me. That, apparently, was enough. What followed was not the collapse of diplomacy, as many had feared. It was worse. It worked. Without translators smoothing edges and sanding down intent, conversations became awkward. Honest. Shorter. Harder to hide behind. The human didn't lead negotiations. He didn't posture or frame arguments. He did something far more unsettling. He asked questions. Simple ones. Uncomfortable ones. What are you actually afraid of? What happens if this fails? Why does this matter to you? Every time someone tried to redirect, he stopped. Every time someone inflated language, he deflated it with a dry remark or a raised eyebrow. The Vulpine diplomat watched, attentive, occasionally stepping in, not to correct him, but to clarify the emotional weight he was pointing at. Data analysts hated it. There were no clean curves. No predictable markers. Emotional honesty was a mess. Progress skyrocketed. Trade routes were agreed upon in hours instead of cycles. Disputes that had lingered for decades dissolved when stripped of performance and pride. Several delegates requested recesses to recalibrate internally, which everyone understood meant panic quietly. Rumors tried to keep up and failed. Some said the human had ensnared the diplomat. Others claimed she had chosen him as a political weapon. A few whispered that humans had always been like this, that they'd simply been underestimated because they laughed too much and dressed too casually and pretended not to care. The human didn't address any of it. He was busy. Busy listening to a being who had spent her life being interpreted instead of understood. Busy translating without translating. Busy doing what humans had always done when dropped into impossible situations: adapt, connect, and keep moving. One delegate finally snapped during a closed session. This is manipulation, they accused. You're exploiting emotional vulnerability. The human looked genuinely surprised. You think vulnerability is a weakness? In diplomacy, yes. He smiled faintly. That explains a lot. The Vulpine diplomat leaned forward. You call it vulnerability. We call it trust. Your discomfort does not make it dangerous. Metrics spiked again. Later, when the chamber was emptying and aides were scrambling to update records that still didn't include him, the human finally exhaled. I should probably exist officially now, he muttered. She considered him. Do you wish to? He hesitated. That answer came with obligations. Visibility. Expectations. The thing he'd survived by avoiding. I don't want to be owned by the system, he said carefully. Her ears angled in understanding. Then do not be. The council argued late into the cycle. Forms were drafted. Statuses debated. Exceptions proposed. In the end, the solution was as inelegant as it was human. They left him unregistered. Not out of neglect this time, but intent. A special designation was created that translated roughly to independent human liaison. No rank. No chain of command. No leash. It made everyone uncomfortable. Which meant it was perfect. On the final day of negotiations, the chair approached him with something resembling humility. You have altered the balance, the chair said. The human shrugged. Balance was off. You have revealed a capability. Yeah, he replied. We tend to do that by accident. The Vulpine diplomat stood beside him, posture relaxed, presence calm. Where once her silence had unnerved, now it settled the room. You forgot, she said to the assembly. Why humans endure. No one interrupted. They are loud, inconsistent, emotionally exposed. She continued. They pretend these are flaws. They hide strength behind humor and self-deprecation. You believe them. A ripple of discomfort moved through the chamber. You erased him, she said, gesturing to the human. And in doing so, you revealed the truth. When stripped of recognition, of rank, of certainty, he did not become lesser. The human shifted, embarrassed. You're overselling it. She ignored him. He became clearer. She finished. Silence followed. Then, slowly, acknowledgement. The agreements were signed. The Vulpine delegation departed with unprecedented ease. As her shuttle prepared to leave, she paused at the threshold and turned back. I will request you again, she said to the council. By name if you choose to have one. The human smiled. Let's not rush things. Her tail flicked once. Very human of you. As she departed, the station exhaled. Systems normalized. Alerts quieted. The crisis officially ended. Unofficially, nothing was the same. Humans were re-evaluated. Emotional intelligence reclassified. A dozen research initiatives launched and quietly failed when they realized you couldn't engineer what humans stumbled into by being themselves. The human returned to his quiet routes, fixing things no one noticed. But now, when he leaned against a railing and listened, people sometimes joined him. They spoke more carefully. Honestly. Not because he demanded it. Because he made it possible. And somewhere in the galaxy's endless archives, a note was added to a long-forgotten entry. Humanity survived not by hiding emotion, but by mastering it, then pretending it wasn't power. The galaxy would spend a long time catching up. The human? He just listened, smiled at the irony, and kept doing what he'd always done best. Being human, quietly, inconveniently, and impossibly hard to ignore.